Good evening, everyone. Now it's time for us to have our lessons. It's time for us to begin our lessons. We're going to learn the English class about the studying, Acer studying on greed. Acer studying on greed. First of all, let's go over the contents of the last lesson. Okay? Now please look at the screen and read after me silently or in a low voice. Moreover, they are unaware of the harm and suffering caused by these self-harm and self-destructive words and actions, and they do not know how to be ashamed or even shameful, and they do not hesitate to tarnish their own image, to be rude and deceitful, to hurt others, and to destroy good cause and condition with others, but only know how to maintain and attach great importance to their own great and to take care of their own so-called faith. As a result, what comes out of the body, mouth, and mind is naturally shameless, and because of these evil causes and conditions, they must eventually be born in the three evil paths. Eventually here, what does eventually here means? Do you know? Eventually here means finally.
最终
Yeah, after all, finally, after should be generally after all should generally be put in the end. Do you know? Okay, let's go on. Suture on the teaching and the warning near Nirvana preached by the Buddha said, the clothing of shame is the most important in all the solemnity. Clothing, what does it mean? Do you know? Clothing. In the sutra of the positive thoughts of Asado Bodhisattva, we have learned it. Again, lotus.
残齿服装
Clothing. What's the meaning? What's the meaning of the word? Clothing.
衣服
No.
English word, not translate into Chinese. Clothing. Sorry, there is not. You can search the word in the sutra of the Asado Bodhisattva. Okay, in the sutra of the positive thoughts of Asado Bodhisattva.
garment
Yes. Garment. Spell it, please. Please write it out.
GARMENT
Yes, spell it. Please write it out on the screen. Okay. Yes, as offering of a Dharma. Yes, garment. Albert, can you remember? Can you remember it?
Yes.
Clothing means garment. The garment of shame. The garment of shame is the most important in all the solemnity. And shame is like an iron hook which can restrain people's afflictions. Therefore, bhikkhus should always be ashamed. There is no temporary replacement. If you are away from being ashamed, you will lose all the merits and virtues. If one has shame, he has the good dharma. If he has no shame, he is no different from the birds and the beasts. Now, please listen to the teacher attentively or carefully. To learn today's content. Okay? Shall we?
So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute? Having shame and knowledge of shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed, we can naturally be the most dignified person. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, and not leaving them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter says, defiling and coveting the 5 external desires is called greed. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world, chasing after the 5 dusts of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to these 5 dusts and become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. In the 16th volume of the Theory on All Giving, it is said, the evil desire for other possessions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, profit, possessions, and all desirable things in the outside world, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5 aggregates of skandhas, without ceasing, boredom and satisfaction.
The last sentence, without ceasing, boredom and satisfaction, it means generating the desire to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. Okay. Now we're going to learn today's content little by little. Okay, little by little, by and by, one sentence by one sentence. So are willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute? Brute, what does it mean? Brute. A brute means an animal, or a beast. So are we willing to be most dignified human being? Or are we willing to be a brute, to be an animal? Having shame and knowledge of shame. Knowledge of shame means knowing shame. Having shame and knowing shame, and knowledge of shame and knowing shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed, and having subdued afflictions such as greed, we can naturally be the most dignified persons. Dignified persons means dignified human beings. Dignified human beings. We will discuss this topic later. Discuss means talk about, or talk of. We will talk about this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. On how to subdue the affliction of greed. Means about. But it's deeper, but it has the deeper meaning. But it has the deeper meaning than about. Let's go on. Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sight, sound, smell, taste, and objects of touch, and not leaving them. The mental activity. The physical activity, do you know? The mental activity. Its opposite word means its opposite word is the physical activity. And be attached to means cling to. 5 desires of sight, sound, smell, taste, and objects of touch. Why is it not used? Why is it not used the touch? Please try to understand it. Please try to comprehend it. Okay?
Touch is a word.
Objects of touch, not touch. Do you know? Touch, not of objects of touch. And not leaving them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter says, defiling and coveting the 5 external desires is called greed. The 5 external desires is called greed. External. Lotus, can you remember the external in my today's translation?
Yes.
Can you remember it? Yes. External. Protector, yes or no? External. Protector. Yes. External. Protector, and so on. You can look it up. In your Zoom. Okay. The 5 external desires is external. Desires is called greed. Greed also means coveting. Do you think so? Greed also means coveting. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world. What does he do? in the world. What do they do? What do they do in the world? Chasing after the 5 dust of sight, sound, smell, taste, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. Chasing after means running after. Do you think so? Chasing after means running after. Living beings living beings live in the world, chasing after or running after the 5 dust of sight, sound, smell, taste, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to these 5 dusts and they become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. When they cling to means are attached to, yes or no? Are attached to. When they are attached to these 5 dusts and they become defiled and attached to them, become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. It means they are coveting. They are to covet. Let's go on. In the 6th volume of the theory on all giving, it is said the evil desire for other possessions is called greed. The evil desire for other possessions. What does the possessions mean here? What does the possessions mean here? Do you know?
Well,
Possessions. Where's? I don't think so. Possessions. I think it. Where's? That's. I think that's okay. That's okay. I think possession means properties. Do you think so? Properties.
much better.
Properties. Yes, much better. Properties is much better than wares. The evil desire for other possessions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, private possessions, and all desirable things in the outside world. In layman's terms, what does it mean? Do you know? Terms, what does it mean? In layman's words, and so on. Do you think so? Greed is the desire for fame, private possessions means properties, and or desirable thing in the outside world. Desirable, what is the noun of it? Do you know? Desirable. Desire. Yes, desire is a noun. Desirable is its adjective. Yes, adjective. Please pay attention to the ending. Please pay attention to the end. S-I-R-E. S-I-R. The other is the S-I-R. A-B-L-E. A-B-L-E. A-B-L-E is so unusual and so unimportant. Do you think so? Desirable things. Let's go on. And even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings. Pursue means
Chase.
run after, or seek, yes or no? Possess, what does it mean? Possess. What does it mean? Possess, have, or own. Possess means have or own. Have or own. Have or own. Possess mean possess.
I will
Own, have. These three words have the same meaning. Do you think so? Possess,
Yes.
possess, yes, possess. Occupy. Do you think so? Occupy or hold, occupy, and occupy the body of all living beings. Occupy, OCCUPY, yes or no? Occupy.
Yes.
Occupy, yes, occupy the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5 aggregates of standards. Consists of. This consists of has been learned in the Constitution. Do you think so, Lotus?
Yes.
Yes. Which consists of the 5 aggregates of standards. The 5 aggregates of standards. Aggregates, what does it mean here? Do you know? The 5 aggregates of standards. I think aggregate means clusters. Do you know clusters? CLUSTERS, clusters, the 5 aggregates of standards. Without ceasing, boredom and satisfaction. Without ceasing, without boredom, or without boring, and satisfaction. Satisfaction means satisfying. Do you think so? Without ceasing, boring, and satisfying. Without ceasing, boring, and satisfaction. Means generating the desire to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. 产生了无厌足的追求，还有占有的欲望。These are called greed. Generating the desire, the lust to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. Yes, occupy. Quite right. Words, fantastic. That's right. Chase after means run after, yes.
Chase for.
Mental activity, physical activity. Now let's listen to the teacher attentively or actively. Attentively or carefully, okay?
So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute? Having shame and knowledge of shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed, we can naturally be the most dignified person. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, and not leaving them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter says, defiling and coveting the 5 external desires is called greed. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world, chasing after the 5 dusts of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to these 5 dusts and become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. In the 16th volume of the Theory on All Giving, it is said, the evil desire for other possessions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, profit, possessions, and all desirable things in the outside world, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5 aggregates of skandhas, without ceasing, boredom and satisfaction.
Consists of, what does it mean, Albert?
Include,
What did you say just now?
which includes the 5 aggregates of skandhas. Includes.
Yes, that's right. There is another answer. Do you know? Be made up of. Do you think so? Be made up of. Be made up of. I think they are the same meaning.
Compose.
Be made
Both
up of.
Much better.
Yes, much better. Consists of means be made up of. I think they have the same meaning. They have exactly same meaning. Please try to remember them. Yes, be made up of. 刚刚说了一个外护众，子莲还没打出来，帮忙贴出来。外护众 ，external，
人言经理我们也学过一个50音母也学过一个 external。
Yes， 把外护众找出来，把那个短语找出来呀，就是那个当一学界外护众了。
OK，
你忘了？你忘了吗？
OK，
三句戒里的。
Yes。
就最后一句找出来。Yes。是凡四王金刚天，当为学界外护众啊。就那一句里面带有 external， 今天我就教的这个外护众的外，它必须要加的一个什么形容词啊 ？external。Once again.
So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute? Having shame and knowledge of shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed, we can naturally be the most dignified person. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, and not leaving them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter says, defiling and coveting the 5 external desires is called greed. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world, chasing after the 5 dusts of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to these 5 dusts and become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. In the 16th volume of the Theory on All Giving, it is said, the evil desire for other possessions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, profit, possessions, and all desirable things in the outside world, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5 aggregates of skandhas, without ceasing, boredom and satisfaction. So, are
最后一句话我们换掉，好吧？最后一句话呀，我们换成最后一句，就比较是符合我原文的翻译的。Generating the desire to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. Boredom. Move it
Both are perfect.
to here. Now it's time for us to practice reading them. Okay, let's read them one by one. So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute, having shame and knowledge of shame and having subdued afflictions? Such as greed, we can naturally be the most dignified persons. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Are you ready? Who would like to read it? Okay. Lotus, please, then Albert.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Wang and everybody. So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute, having shame and knowledge of shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed? We can naturally be the most dignified persons. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter 1, in the chapter on how to subdue the afflictions of greed. Thank you.
Perfect. Fantastic. Albert, please.
Good evening, Mr. Wang. Good evening, everybody. So, are we willing to be a most dignified human being, or are we willing to be a brute, having shame and the knowledge of shame, and having subdued afflictions such as greed? We can naturally be the most dignified persons. We will discuss this topic later in the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Thank you.
In the chapter on how to subdue the affliction of greed. Perfect. Naturally. Okay, perfect. Let's go on.
谢谢. Thank you.
Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sight, sound, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, and not living them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter says, defiling and coveting the 5 external desires is called greed. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world chasing after the 5 dusts of sight, sound, smell, tastes, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to these 5 dusts and become defiled and attached to them, they become greedy. Eileen Sun, please.
Also, greed refers to the mental activity of being defiled and attached to the 5 desires of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, and not living them. Volume 5 of the Mahayana Meaning Chapter themes defining and coveting the 5 external desires is calling greed. According to Buddhism, living beings live in the world, chasing after the 5 dusts of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch with their eyes, ears, noses, tongues, and bodies. When they cling to their 5 dusts and become defined and attached to them, then become greedy.
Fantastic. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Okay. In the 16th volume of the theory on all giving, it is said the evil desire for other positions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, private positions, and all desirable things in the outside world, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5 aggregates of standards, generating the desire to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. Lotus, please.
Yes. In the 16th volume of the theory on all giving, it is said the evil desire for other positions is called greed. In layman's terms, greed is the desire for fame, private positions, and all desirable things in the outside world, and even the desire to pursue and possess the body of all living beings, which consists of the 5. Please turn the page. Okay, all
Sorry.
the 5 aggregates of standards, generating the desire to pursue and possess without boredom and satisfaction. Thank you.
Satisfaction, yes. 动词 satisfy, satisfying, satisfied, and so on, and so on. 刚刚我说的 Lotus 好像没帮我找出来呀。好，我现在来找一找。可能今天我没有发到群里吗？
老师，
三句界的
你今
翻译啊。
天这个3句键没发。
哦，好，我来找一找。对，我发给会长了。好，我来找一下。就最后一句。求解的。To work as the external protectors of these precepts, external protectors 外护众 of the precept, OK? 好，有机会传到群里去，好吗？大家共享 OK. That's all for tonight. Thank you so much indeed for your support, cooperation, tolerance, and great achievement. See you next week. Have a nice weekend, guys and mates. Now I'll put down my mic.